The crystalline dome of Council Station Omega gleamed against the backdrop of distant stars, its translucent surface refracting light from the triple suns of the Nexus system. Ambassador Elena Cross stood at the viewing portal, her diplomatic uniform crisp despite the 30-hour journey from Earth. She watched as her transport vessel disengaged from the docking ring and retreated into the void, leaving her alone among the dozen alien species that comprised the Galactic Council. 2 centuries, she whispered to herself. 200 years since first contact, and still we stand on ceremony like novices. Elena smoothed her dark hair, tucked a stray strand behind her ear, and straightened the silver pin bearing Earth's emblem, an olive branch encircling a stylized globe. The weight of her responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. 30 star systems now bore the mark of human influence: research stations, mining outposts, terraforming projects, and bustling colonies. Earth's rapid expansion had brought prosperity but also suspicion from the ancient species that had ruled these sectors for millennia before humanity's arrival. The door to the observation deck slid open with a soft hiss. A tall, slender figure stepped through, its translucent skin pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that shifted from azure to deep purple. "Ambassador Cross," the being said, its translator converting complex harmonic vocalizations into English. "I am Aid Thexus. Councillor Morak sends regards and hopes your journey was without incident." Elena turned and offered the traditional council greeting, right palm open, left palm covering her heart. "The journey serves its purpose when understanding awaits at its end," she recited. Thexus's skin brightened in approval. "The council session begins in 2 Earth hours. Your quarters are prepared in the diplomatic wing. The gifts you sent ahead have been placed in the ceremonial hall." "Thank you, Aid Thexus. I would appreciate a moment to review my notes before the session." The aide bowed slightly. "Of course. One small matter. Councillor Vexathara has requested a private audience before the plenary session." Elena's expression remained neutral, but her pulse quickened. Vexathara, representative of the Krillian hegemony, had been Earth's most vocal critic in recent council meetings. His request was unexpected and concerning. "I would be honored to meet with the councillor," she replied smoothly. "Please arrange it for 30 minutes before the session." After Thexus departed, Elena activated her secure datapad. The quantum-encrypted device connected to Earth's diplomatic servers, displaying her briefing materials. President Lisa Carter's instructions were clear: secure the treaty extensions, maintain access to the interstellar trade routes, and, above all, preserve peace. The treaty negotiations had been proceeding for months through lower-level diplomats, and this final session was supposed to be ceremonial, a formality to commemorate 2 centuries of cooperation. But Elena knew better. Intelligence reports suggested growing unease among several council species regarding humanity's rapid technological advancement and territorial expansion. The Zephyrian delegation had twice inquired about unusual energy signatures detected near Earth's Kuiper Belt outposts. The Krillians had filed formal protests about human mining operations encroaching on traditionally neutral systems. Most troubling were the rumors, whispers of hidden human warships and weapons tests conducted in the shadows of uninhabited star systems. Elena knew these claims were unsubstantiated, but in the delicate balance of interspecies relations, perception often outweighed reality. Her quarters were spacious by station standards, a concession to human physiology that some council members viewed as preferential treatment. Elena unpacked quickly, laying out her formal diplomatic robes for the ceremony. She had just finished reviewing the treaty amendments when her comm unit chimed. "Ambassador Cross," came the fluid, melodic voice of Councillor Morak. "May I enter?" Elena was surprised. Morak, representative of the ancient Luraxi, rarely visited diplomats personally. "Of course. Councillor, you honor me." The door slid open to reveal Morak's imposing form. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, The Luraxi's body was covered in iridescent scales that shimmered like oil on water. 4 primary arms and 2 smaller secondary limbs were folded in the traditional posture of respect. "Ambassador," Morax said, ducking slightly to enter the room. "I come unofficially, without aides or recorders." Elena gestured to the seating area, specially designed to accommodate various physiologies. "Please, make yourself comfortable. Would you like refreshment?" "No." Morax settled onto a reinforced bench, compound eyes fixing on Elena with unsettling intensity. "I come with concern, not thirst. There are complications in the council." Elena sat across from the counselor, maintaining diplomatic poise despite her growing unease. "I'm listening." "Counselor, Vexathara has been gathering support against the treaty renewal. He claims to possess evidence of human military expansion beyond the agreed parameters." "Such claims are unfounded," Elena replied firmly. "Earth has adhered to every provision of the treaty. Our growth has been peaceful and transparent." Morax's scales rippled in a pattern Elena recognized as skepticism. "Perhaps, but 7 council members now support a motion to delay the treaty renewal pending a full investigation. An investigation based on rumors would set a dangerous precedent," Elena countered. "The treaty includes mechanisms for addressing concerns through proper channels. Politics rarely follows proper channels. Ambassador Cross, you know this." Morax leaned forward. "The Luraxi have been allies to humans since first contact. We remember how your species helped cure the Cascade Plague that threatened our young. But I cannot control the Council alone." Elena considered her options carefully. "What exactly does Councillor Vexathara claim to have discovered?" "He has not shared details widely, but he speaks of weapons tests near the Cygnus Void. Energy signatures consistent with planet-killer technology." Morax's voice dropped lower. "He plans to present evidence during the plenary session." A chill ran through Elena. The Cygnus Void was indeed the site of a classified Earth research station, but its purpose was stellar cartography, not weapons development. She had reviewed all military intelligence before her departure. There were no planet-killer tests. "Counselor, I appreciate your warning. Whatever evidence Vexathara presents, I assure you it has been misinterpreted or fabricated. Earth seeks peaceful coexistence, not dominance." Morax rose to leave. "I hope you are right, Ambassador, for all our sakes." At the door, the Luraxi paused. "The Krillians have been unusually active in the outer systems. Their scout ships have been spotted near Earth's colonies. Perhaps this is coincidence, but the Luraxi do not believe in coincidences." After Morax's departure, Elena immediately sent an encrypted message to Earth, flagging the situation as urgent. She had expected challenges, but not accusations of this magnitude. If Vexathara truly intended to present false evidence of weapons tests, the diplomatic situation could deteriorate rapidly. The response from President Carter came within minutes. "Maintain position, deny allegations, request evidence verification through neutral parties, backup diplomatic package being prepared, stand firm, Elena." The meeting with Vexathara was brief and cold. The Krillian counselor, his carapace polished to a ceremonial shine, offered no hint of his planned accusations. He spoke only of procedural matters, his compound eyes unreadable, his mandibles clicking softly with what Elena recognized as restrained aggression. "The Council awaits, Ambassador," he said as they concluded. "I trust Earth is prepared for all outcomes today." The threat was thinly veiled, but Elena refused to be provoked. "Earth comes in peace and good faith, Counselor, as we always have." The council chamber was a marvel of cooperative engineering. The circular room spanned nearly 100 meters in diameter, with the representatives of 12 species seated in a ring around a central projection area. The chamber's ceiling was transparent, offering a view of the stars, a reminder of the vastness they all shared. Elena took her position at the human delegation's platform. The ceremonial gifts Earth had sent ahead, rare minerals, cultural artifacts, and a collection of Earth's finest literary works translated into all Council languages, were displayed prominently on a table to her right. High Counselor Thex, the eldest of the Zephyrian representatives and current Council chair, rose to open the session. His translucent body glowed with formal ceremonial patterns. "We gather under the eternal stars to renew bonds of peace and cooperation." Thex began, his words carrying through the chamber in 12 different languages simultaneously. "For 2 centuries, the species of the known galaxy have walked together in harmony. Today, we renew the great treaty that binds our futures together." Elena felt a moment of pride. Humanity had come so far, from a single planet to a respected voice in this assembly of ancient civilizations. Whatever Vexathera planned, surely the foundations of 200 years of cooperation would not crumble in a single day. Her optimism shattered as Councillor Vexathera rose before the traditional treaty recitation could begin. "Point of urgent order," the Krillian announced, his translator rendering his clicking speech into a harsh, metallic voice. "I invoke Section 7 of the Council Charter, immediate disclosure of threats to galactic security." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Section 7 was rarely invoked. It superseded all ceremonial procedures and diplomatic protocols. High Counselor Thex's glow dimmed slightly in surprise. "The Council recognizes Councillor Vexathera. Proceed with your disclosure." Vexathera stepped into the central projection area, his 4 upper limbs working in concert to manipulate the holographic controls. "Distinguished representatives of the civilized galaxy, I present evidence of treaty violations that threaten our collective security." The chamber darkened, and a 3-dimensional projection materialized above the central platform. Elena recognized the star patterns of the Cygnus Void. A small station, clearly of human design, orbited a nondescript planetoid. "Observe," Vexathera said, his voice heavy with accusation. "This facility, designated by humans as Deep Space Observatory, CSO-7, has been monitoring stellar phenomena for the past 15 years. Elena relaxed slightly. This was indeed the cartography station, exactly as Earth had registered it with the Council. "However," Vexathera continued, manipulating the controls, "our intelligence vessels captured these images 3 standard months ago." The projection shifted. The same station now appeared to be launching what looked like weapons platforms. Energy signatures pulsed around the facility, and a beam of concentrated light struck the nearby planetoid, which cracked and shattered in a spectacular explosion. Gasps and exclamations echoed through the chamber. Elena stared in disbelief. This was impossible. The station had no weapons capabilities. "This is falsified," she declared. Stepping forward, Earth categorically denies any weapons testing in the Cygnus Void or anywhere else beyond treaty parameters. I demand verification of this evidence by neutral observers. Vexathera's mandibles clicked rapidly, a Krillian expression of disdain. Anticipated denial. Therefore, we present additional evidence. The projection changed again, showing what appeared to be human warships, dozens of them, in formation near Jupiter's orbit, well beyond the permitted defense perimeter established by treaty. These vessels, equipped with planet-killer capabilities similar to those tested in Cygnus, were documented by multiple sources. Vexathera stated, Earth has been building a war fleet in secret, while presenting a facade of peaceful expansion. Elena's mind raced. There were no such ships, at least none she had been briefed about. Earth maintained a defense force. Yes, but nothing approaching the armada displayed in Vexathera's projection. These images are fabricated, she insisted, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. I call for an immediate technical analysis by the Council's independent verification team. Analysis has already been conducted, Vexathera replied smoothly. The Council's Security Division confirmed the authenticity of these recordings this morning. Eleanor looked to Counselor Morak for support, but the Laraxi's posture had changed. Gone was the concerned ally who had visited her quarters. In his place sat a formal council member, scales pulsing with patterns of alarm and concern. Ambassador Cross. High Counselor Thex spoke, his voice grave. These are serious allegations, if verified. They constitute fundamental violations of the Great Treaty. They cannot be verified because they are false, Elena replied firmly. Earth requests an emergency communication channel to our government to address these accusations. Councillor Vexathara raised a limb in objection. With respect, allowing the accused to coordinate responses defeats the purpose of this disclosure. We have further evidence suggesting that Ambassador Cross herself has been directing these secret operations. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Eleanor stood stunned as another projection appeared. A doctored recording showing her apparently giving orders to military commanders, discussing weapons deployments in the Cygnus Void. This is outrageous. Elena's diplomatic reserve finally cracked. I have never given such orders. This recording is a complete fabrication. But her protests were drowned out by the rising tide of voices. Council members conferred hastily with their aides. Security personnel moved to block the chamber exits, and High Counselor Thex struggled to maintain order. Silence! Thex finally commanded, his body flashing brilliantly. The council will have order. The chamber quieted, but the damage was done. Elena could see the suspicion in the postures and expressions of the various species representatives. In light of the evidence presented, Thex continued, I call for an immediate vote on the following measures. Suspension of treaty renewal negotiations, detainment of the human delegation for questioning, and the dispatch of a council inspection team to human territories. I object, Elena called out. These accusations require verification. Earth has the right to present counter-evidence and... The Council acknowledges your objection, Ambassador. Thex interrupted. However, Section 7 protocols are clear. Security concerns take precedence over diplomatic privileges. The vote was swift and devastating. 10 of the 12 Council species supported all proposed measures. Only the Laraxi abstained. While the Neurons, a species of energy beings who rarely involved themselves in material conflicts, voted against. Ambassador Elena Cross, Thex announced formally. You and your delegation are hereby detained pending investigation of these serious allegations. Council security will escort you to the diplomatic holding wing. All communication with Earth will be supervised until the investigation concludes. As security officers, massive, silicon-based Thorgarians approached her platform. Elena made one final appeal. High Counselor, representatives of the Council, I implore you to reconsider. False evidence has been presented today. Detaining Earth's diplomatic mission on these grounds will irreparably damage relations between our peoples. The decision is made. Ambassador. Thex replied. If the evidence proves false, appropriate apologies will be issued, but the Council must protect galactic security above all else. Elena had no choice but to comply, as she was escorted from the chamber. Her final glimpse was of Councillor Vexathara, his carapace gleaming under the starlight from above, mandibles clicking in what she now recognized as triumph. The diplomatic holding wing was comfortable but undeniably a prison. Elena's communication devices were confiscated, her access to station systems restricted. Her aides, 3 junior diplomats who had accompanied her to Omega, were held in separate quarters. For 3 days, Elena was interrogated by Council security officials. They presented more doctored evidence, demanded explanations for military deployments that had never occurred, and questioned her about Earth's supposed secret weapons programs. Throughout, she maintained her composure and denied all allegations. Earth has adhered to every provision of the treaty, she repeated. These accusations are based on falsified evidence. On the 4th day, Councillor Morak visited her. The Laraxi seemed troubled. his scales pulsing with conflicting patterns. The situation deteriorates. Ambassador, Morak said without preamble. The Council has voted to expand the investigation. Inspection teams are being dispatched to Earth colonies. Has Earth been notified? Elena asked. Yes. Your government has protested but agreed to allow inspections at 3 major colonies. They continue to demand your release. Elena felt a surge of hope. Then President Carter understands the gravity of the situation. Cooperation is the only way to disprove these false accusations. Morak's primary arms shifted in a gesture of uncertainty. There is more Council intelligence reports unusual activity in your home system. Energy signatures suggest fleet movements beyond Jupiter. Elena frowned. What kind of fleet movements? The reports are unclear, but Vexathara is using this information to push for more severe measures. He now claims Earth is preparing for aggression against the Council. That's absurd, Elena said firmly. Earth has no interest in conflict. Morak leaned closer, voice dropping to a near whisper. There are rumors. Ambassador, rumors that some on your world have long prepared for a scenario where relations with the Council collapse, a contingency called Exterminatus Protocol. Elena couldn't hide her shock. I've never heard of such a protocol. It sounds like more Krillian propaganda. Perhaps. Morak rose to leave. But consider this warning. Ambassador Cross, Vexathara seeks not just detention but execution. He claims human duplicity warrants the highest penalty under Council law. Execution? Elena felt cold dread settle in her stomach. On what grounds? Conspiracy to commit genocide. The fabricated weapons he presented are classified as extinction-level technology. Morak moved toward the door. I will continue to advocate for restraint, but the Council mood grows darker by the day. After Morak left, Elena paced her quarters, mind racing. If the situation was as dire as the Loraxi suggested, Earth would be preparing contingencies. But an Exterminatus Protocol? The name alone suggested something drastic, something she, as Earth's senior diplomat, should have been briefed on if it existed. On Terra Nova, Earth's first extrasolar colony and now the headquarters of the Interstellar Colonial Oversight System, ICOS. President Lisa Carter stood before a gathered emergency council. Her normally composed features were tight with tension as she surveyed the faces around the conference table. Ambassador Cross has been detained for 5 days, she began, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. The Council refuses to allow unmonitored communication and continues to present falsified evidence against Earth. Admiral Frank Hayes, commander of Earth's Defense Forces, leaned forward. Madam President, the Council inspection teams have arrived at Proxima, Tau Ceti, and New Eden colonies. They're conducting invasive scans and interrogating colonial officials. Have they found anything that could be misconstrued as treaty violations? Carter asked. No, Hayes replied, but they're not looking for truth. They're building a case. Our intelligence suggests this entire situation was orchestrated by the Krillians months in advance. Carter turned to her intelligence director. What's the status of Council military movements? Concerning, Madam President, Krillian battle groups have repositioned near 4 of our outer colonies. The Zephyrians have activated their long-range sensors focused on Sol system. Most troubling, the Thorgarians have deployed shield generators around Council Station Omega, military-grade shielding, not the standard diplomatic protections. Dr. Amanda Price, scientific director of ICOS and head of Earth's Advanced Research Division, cleared her throat. Madam President, given these developments, I believe we should discuss the Exterminatus contingency. A heavy silence fell over the room. Admiral Hayes' expression darkened, while several civilian officials exchanged worried glances. I had hoped never to hear that name spoken in an official capacity. President Carter said quietly. Dr. Price, summarize the protocol for those not fully briefed. Dr. Price activated a secure holographic display. Exterminatus Protocol was developed 70 years ago, during the Neuron Crisis, when we feared Council species might turn against us. It was designed as a last resort deterrent, never intended for deployment. The display showed a complex network of hidden installations, spacecraft, and weapon systems distributed throughout human territory and beyond. The protocol consists of 3 phases, Dr. Price continued. First, activation of dormant military assets concealed throughout our territories and in neutral zones. Second, deployment of specialized weaponry designed to target the unique vulnerabilities of each Council species. Third, implementation of what we call environmental conversion technology, systems capable of rendering Council homeworlds uninhabitable for their native species, but suitable for human colonization. Good God, whispered one of the civilian officials. We built all this? We built the capability, Admiral Hayes interjected. As a deterrent, like the nuclear arsenals of old Earth, weapons never meant to be used, but whose existence prevented aggression. President Carter studied the display. How quickly could this be implemented if authorized? Phase 1 could be activated immediately. Dr. Price replied, Phases 2 and 3 would deploy over a period of 2 to 14 days, depending on the specific targets. Carter closed her eyes briefly, the weight of the decision evident in her posture. I never received a full briefing on this protocol when I took office. It was mentioned only as a theoretical contingency. I had no idea the infrastructure was actually in place. It was deemed necessary. Madam President, Admiral Hayes said, humanity is young compared to the Council species. We needed insurance against extinction. And now that insurance may be our only option, Carter murmured. She straightened, addressing the entire Council. I want to be absolutely clear. This is a last resort. We continue diplomatic efforts. Ambassador Cross has served Earth with distinction for 20 years. We do not abandon her. The Council has scheduled a final hearing. The intelligence director noted, according to our sources, they intend to try Ambassador Cross for crimes against galactic peace. The penalty, if convicted, is execution. They wouldn't dare, Carter said, but uncertainty tinged her voice. They would, Admiral Hayes countered. The Krillians have been looking for an excuse to check human expansion for decades. This crisis gives them that opportunity. Execute our ambassador, declare Earth in violation of treaty obligations, impose restrictions that would cripple our colonies. Dr. Price manipulated the holographic display, showing a series of projections. If the Council restricts our access to the trade routes and key resource worlds, our colonial infrastructure collapses within 5 years. Earth itself would face severe resource shortages within a decade. President Carter rose from her seat and walked to the window overlooking the sprawling capital of Terra Nova. The twin moons hung in the afternoon sky, symbolic of humanity's achievement in creating a second home among the stars. Admiral Hayes, place our forces on highest alert, but maintain current positions, no provocative movements. She turned back to the Council. Dr. Price, prepare the exterminator systems for potential activation, but take no irreversible steps. She addressed the entire Council once more. We make one final diplomatic push. Send a special envoy to Council Station Omega with an ultimatum. Release Ambassador Cross and end this farce of an investigation, or Earth will consider it an act of war. As the Council members departed to execute her orders, President Carter remained at the window, contemplating the terrible choice that might soon face her. 2 centuries of peaceful cooperation with the galactic community, potentially ending in devastating conflict because of Krillian paranoia and fabricated evidence. Elena, she whispered, thinking of the ambassador she had known for over 15 years. Hold on, we're coming for you. Back on Council Station Omega. Eleanor Cross was brought before the full Council for what was described as a evidence review session. The diplomatic euphemism didn't disguise the reality. This was a trial. The Council chamber had been reconfigured. Instead of her usual position at the human delegation's platform, Elena stood in the center of the room, surrounded on all sides by the representatives of 12 ancient species. The transparent ceiling still revealed the stars above, but now they seemed cold and distant, indifferent to her fate. High Counselor Thex presided. Ambassador Elena Cross, you stand accused of conspiracy against galactic peace, violation of treaty obligations, and participation in the development of prohibited extinction-level technologies. How do you respond to these charges? Elena stood tall, her diplomatic uniform still immaculate despite days of detention. I categorically deny all charges. The evidence presented against Earth and against me personally has been falsified. I demand independent verification by neutral parties. Verification has been conducted, Councillor Vexa Thara interjected, his carapace gleaming under the chamber lights. Multiple authentication protocols confirm the evidence is genuine. By whose standards? Elena challenged. The Council's Security Division is currently headed by a Krillian officer, a direct subordinate of Councillor Vexa Thara. This represents a clear conflict of interest. Murmurs rippled through the assembled representatives. Elena pressed her advantage. Furthermore, Earth has permitted inspection teams full access to 3 major colonies. No evidence of treaty violations has been found. Yet I remain detained, and false accusations continue to mount. High Counselor Thex's translucent form pulsed with patterns Elena couldn't interpret. The inspection teams report unusual energy shielding preventing complete scans of certain facilities. Standard privacy measures for civilian research, Elena countered. Nothing that violates treaty provisions. Earth has cooperated fully despite the irregular nature of these proceedings. Councillor Morak raised a primary limb, requesting recognition. The Laraxi delegation notes that proper diplomatic protocols have not been followed in this matter. Ambassador Cross should have been permitted unmonitored communication with her government. Security concerns outweigh diplomatic niceties. Vexa Thara clicked dismissively, especially given new intelligence suggesting Earth is mobilizing its hidden war fleet. Elena's head snapped toward the Krillian. What war fleet? Earth maintains only the defense force permitted under treaty provisions. Vexa Thara manipulated the chamber's holographic systems, displaying what appeared to be sensor readings from the outer Sol system. These energy signatures were detected near your Kuiper Belt outposts yesterday. They match the profile of the vessels documented in our earlier evidence. Elena studied the readings carefully. To her eyes, they showed nothing conclusive, energy fluctuations that could be interpreted in multiple ways. These readings are ambiguous at best. They could represent anything from solar-wind interactions to standard mining operations. Our experts disagree, Vexa Thara stated flatly. The Council Security Division interprets these as definitive evidence of fleet movements, military vessels with stealth capabilities attempting to mask their signatures. Elena realized with growing dread that no evidence she presented would matter. The Krillians had decided on their narrative and were bending everything to fit it. This wasn't a trial, it was theater designed to justify actions already decided upon. I request a recess to consult with legal representation, she said formally. Denied, High Counselor Thex responded. Council security protocols during Section 7 proceedings do not permit delays. The proceedings continued for hours. Evidence, much of it clearly manipulated, was presented against Earth and against Elena personally. Recordings showed her apparently discussing weapons deployments with military officials, conversations that had never occurred. Documents bearing her electronic signature authorized research into biological agents targeted at specific Council species, documents she had never seen, let alone signed. Throughout, Elena maintained her composure, refuting each accusation with logical arguments and requesting verification that was consistently denied. But as the session wore on, she could see the outcome was predetermined. The Council representatives, with the exception of Morak and the Neuron delegate, had already made their decision. Finally, High Counselor Thex called for deliberations. Elena was escorted to a small antechamber while the council discussed her fate. As the door closed behind her, she allowed herself a moment of despair. She had failed in her mission to preserve peace, not through any diplomatic error, but because peace had never been the Krillion's objective. After what seemed like hours, she was returned to the chamber. The mood had changed. A heavy solemnity had settled over the representatives. Elena knew before a word was spoken what their decision would be. Ambassador Elena Cross. High Counselor Thex began, his voice formal and distant. The council has reviewed all evidence and testimony. By a vote of 10 affirming, 1 opposing, and 1 abstaining, you are found guilty of conspiracy against galactic peace, violation of treaty obligations, and development of prohibited technologies. Elena stood silent, her worst fears confirmed. The penalty for these crimes, as established in Section 12 of the Great Treaty, is death. Thex's body pulsed with what might have been regret. The sentence will be carried out immediately. I request the right to communicate with my government one final time, Elena said, her voice steady despite the horror of the pronouncement. That right is granted, Thex conceded. You will be permitted a brief, monitored communication. A communication terminal was brought forward. Under the watchful eyes of Council security, Elena composed what would be her final message to Earth. President Carter, the Council has found me guilty based on falsified evidence and has sentenced me to death. The execution will be carried out immediately. I maintain my innocence and Earth's innocence of all charges. I believe this entire crisis was manufactured by the Krilians to justify restrictions on human expansion. My final recommendation as Earth's ambassador is to prepare for the worst while still seeking peaceful resolution if possible. It has been my honor to serve humanity. Peace was our choice, remember that. Whatever comes next. Elena Cross, Ambassador of Earth. She sent the message, knowing it would be reviewed by Council security before transmission to Earth. Whether they would alter it or block it entirely, she couldn't know. 2 Thorgarian security officers approached to escort her to the execution chamber. As she turned to leave, Councillor Morak rose from his seat. Ambassador Cross, the Luraxi called, his voice carrying across the chamber. The Luraxi acknowledge your service and your commitment to peace. We will remember. Elena nodded in acknowledgement, then straightened her shoulders and walked with dignity between her guards. Her mind was surprisingly clear. She had done everything possible to preserve peace. The failure was not hers, but the Council's, manipulated by Krillian ambitions and fear of human potential. As she was led through the station corridors, Elena's thoughts turned to Earth. Would President Carter activate this exterminatus protocol Morak had mentioned? Would her death become the catalyst for interstellar war? She hoped not, but feared the Krillians had pushed too far. Their fabricated evidence and sham trial would not be forgotten or forgiven easily. The execution chamber was small and austere, a circular room with a raised platform in the center. The walls were lined with ceremonial inscriptions in the ancient languages of the founding council species. Above, a transparent dome revealed the stars, the same stars that had witnessed the birth and death of countless civilizations before humanity had even learned to make fire. Elena was positioned on the platform. A Zephyrian official approached, holding a ceremonial device, a small crystalline sphere that would, when activated, generate a quantum field that would painlessly stop all neural activity. Ambassador Elena Cross of Earth, the official intoned, do you wish to speak final words? Elena looked up at the stars that belong to all sentient beings, not just the ancient species of the Council. I speak not just for myself, but for humanity. We came to the stars in peace, seeking cooperation and mutual advancement. That remains our desire. If my death serves some purpose in the grand design of the universe, I accept it. But know this, peace was our choice. Whatever follows, remember that humanity chose peace first. The Zephyrian nodded solemnly and raised the crystalline sphere. At that moment, deep in the void of space, Admiral Frank Hayes stood on the bridge of the EDF Redemption, flagship of Earth's hidden fleet. Before him, a holographic display showed the quantum-encrypted message from Council Station Omega, Ambassador Cross's final communication. "Signal verified, Admiral," his communications officer reported. "It passed through Council security filters, but content analysis suggests no tampering." Hayes read the message twice, then turned to his executive officer. "Transmit to Terra Nova, Priority Alpha, append fleet status and request final authorization." The response from President Carter came within minutes. "Authorization granted. Exterminatus protocol activated. Phase 1, commence immediately. Recover our ambassador if possible. If not, ensure her sacrifice is not forgotten. Carter, President of Earth and Colonies." Hayes took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history pressing down upon him. "Signal the fleet. Stealth protocols terminated. Combat deployment pattern Delta. Primary target, Council Station Omega." Throughout the Kuiper Belt and beyond, hidden installations hummed to life. Stealth fields dropped from dozens of warships, vessels that had been constructed in secret over decades, their existence known only to a select few in Earth's leadership. Captain Ben Rogers, commanding the assault cruiser Vindication, received his orders with grim determination. "Helm, set course for Omega Station, maximum speed, weapon systems to full readiness." As Earth's hidden fleet emerged from concealment, alarms spread through the Council's monitoring stations. Emergency signals raced across subspace communications networks on distant worlds. Ancient species who had thought themselves secure in their dominance of the galaxy suddenly faced an unexpected threat. In her final moments, standing beneath the stars, Elena Cross remained unaware of the forces now in motion. As the Zephyrian official activated the crystalline sphere, she closed her eyes. "Peace was our choice," she whispered one last time. The quantum field enveloped her, neural activity ceasing instantly. Ambassador Elena Cross, diplomat, peacemaker, and unwitting martyr, collapsed to the platform. At that precise moment, the first kinetic rod struck Council Station Omega, launched from a stealth platform that had been hiding in the station's shadow for years. The simple tungsten projectile, accelerated to near relativistic speed, punched through the station's shields as if they were tissue paper. The impact shook the entire structure. In the council chamber, representatives scrambled in confusion and fear. High Councillor Thex demanded reports, while Councillor Vexathara issued orders to Krillian vessels in the vicinity. A second impact followed, then a third. Alarms blared throughout the station as atmosphere began venting from damaged sections. The execution chamber's transparent dome cracked, then shattered, exposing the room to vacuum. Elena's body, already lifeless, drifted upward toward the stars she had so admired. On the bridge of the Redemption, Admiral Hayes watched the tactical display as the first phase of the attack unfolded. "Status of station shields?" "Collapsing, Admiral. Our embedded sabotage packages are activating. Primary defense systems are failing station-wide." Hayes nodded grimly. "Signal the fleet. Phase 2 commences on my mark." The hidden Earth fleet dropped out of hyperspace, surrounding Council Station Omega. 27 warships, each armed with weapons the Council had believed beyond human technology, trained their targeting systems on the diplomatic heart of galactic civilization. "Priority targets identified," reported the tactical officer. "Krillian vessels are attempting to form a defensive perimeter." "Neutralize them," Hayes ordered. "Then prepare for boarding operations. I want control of that station." The space around Omega Station erupted in weapons fire. Earth vessels, designed specifically to counter Council military technology, made short work of the defensive ships. Precision strikes disabled rather than destroyed where possible. Hayes wanted prisoners, not martyrs. Inside the station, Panic reigned. Council representatives and their staffs rushed toward escape pods, only to find many disabled by pre-planted sabotage devices. Security forces attempted to mount a defense, but they faced an enemy that had studied their tactics and technologies for decades. Councillor Morak fought against the tide of fleeing officials, making his way to the council chamber where emergency protocols were being enacted. "We must establish communication with the human fleet," the Laraxi insisted. "This attack comes in direct response to our execution of Ambassador Cross. The humans reveal their true nature." Vexathara clicked furiously. "This proves everything I presented. They planned this aggression all along." "Fool!" Morak's scales flashed with anger patterns. "You fabricated evidence against them, executed their ambassador on false charges, and expected no response? You have doomed us all." Before Vexathara could reply, the chamber shook violently as another impact struck nearby. The lights flickered, emergency systems struggling to maintain power. "Council Station Omega is lost," High Councillor Thex announced, his translucent form pulsing with distress patterns. "Evacuation order confirmed. All representatives to emergency vessels immediately." On Terra Nova. President Carter watched the unfolding assault through a secure feed. The images showed Earth forces systematically disabling Council Station Omega's defensive capabilities and neutralizing military opposition. "Admiral Hayes reports minimal Earth casualties," her aide reported. "Council forces are retreating. The station will be under our control within the hour." Carter nodded, her expression grave. "And Ambassador Cross?" "Confirmed dead, Madam President. Her execution was carried out moments before our first strike." Carter closed her eyes briefly. "Then we proceed as planned. Transmit the ultimatum to all Council worlds. Activate Phase 2 of the protocol." Throughout human space and beyond, hidden installations and sleeper agents sprang into action. On Zephyr Prime, home world of High Councillor Thex, human operatives who had lived among the Zephyrians for years activated EMP devices that crippled the planet's defense grid. Similar operations unfolded on Krylia, Lurax, and other Council homeworlds. Within hours, the balance of power that had defined interstellar relations for centuries shattered. Earth forces, long hidden and prepared for this exact scenario, seized control of key strategic locations. Council military responses were uncoordinated and ineffective, their command structure thrown into chaos by the sudden loss of Omega Station. 2 days after Ambassador Cross's execution, Admiral Hayes stood in the Council chamber, now a command center for Earth's military operations. The transparent ceiling had been repaired, once again revealing the stars that now witnessed a new order taking shape. "Zephyr Prime and Krylia have surrendered," his intelligence officer reported. "The Laraxi are requesting negotiation terms. 3 minor Council species have declared neutrality. The Thorgarians continue to resist but are isolated and cut off from reinforcement." Hayes studied the strategic display showing Earth forces controlling the major trade routes and hyperspace junctions. "And the special weapons?" "Deployed to all designated targets. Admiral, atmospheric conversion technology is ready for activation on your command." Hayes hesitated. The atmospheric conversion technology represented the most extreme element of the Exterminatus protocol, devices capable of altering a planet's atmosphere to make it uninhabitable for its native species while simultaneously optimizing it for human physiology. It was, in essence, a weapon of extinction, the very thing Ambassador Cross had been falsely accused of developing. "Hold that phase," Hayes ordered. "Maintain deployment, but take no further action without direct authorization from President Carter." He turned as a communication officer approached. "Admiral, we've recovered Ambassador Cross's body from the void. Medical confirms death by quantum field dissolution, standard Council execution procedure." Hayes nodded solemnly. "Prepare her for return to Earth with full honors. Her sacrifice will not be forgotten." On Terra Nova, President Carter addressed an emergency session of the Colonial Parliament, The chamber was filled with elected representatives from Earth and all 30 colony worlds, their faces grave as they absorbed the momentous events of the past days. "Ambassador Elena Cross has fallen," Carter began, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. "Executed by a council that abandoned justice in favor of fear and fabrication. Her final message to us was clear. Peace was our choice. And it was. For 2 centuries, humanity extended the hand of friendship to the galaxy." She paused, surveying the assembled representatives. That hand was slapped away. Not by all council species. Some, like the Luraxi, advocated for fairness and protocol. But the Krillian-led faction chose conflict over cooperation. They manufactured evidence. They conducted a sham trial. They executed our ambassador. And in doing so, they awakened capabilities they never suspected we possessed. Displays around the chamber showed Earth forces in control of Council Station Omega, now renamed Cross Station, in honor of the fallen ambassador. Additional screens displayed the current military situation, Council resistance crumbling, Earth dominance established across multiple sectors. "We stand at a crossroads," Carter continued. "The Exterminator's protocol was designed as a last resort, a final option if the Council turned against us. Phase 1 has succeeded beyond expectation. Our hidden fleet and installations have secured strategic control of key systems. Phase 2, deployment of specialized countermeasures against each Council species, stands ready." She took a deep breath. "Phase 3, atmospheric conversion of Council homeworlds, awaits only my command." A murmur ran through the chamber. Many representatives shifted uncomfortably at the mention of what amounted to genocide. "I will not give that command," Carter stated firmly. "Ambassador Cross died proclaiming peace as humanity's choice. We will honor her memory by offering the Council species terms of surrender that preserve their existence while ensuring they can never again threaten ours." The colonial parliament erupted in a mixture of applause and protests. Some representatives called for complete implementation of the protocol, arguing that leaving any Council species intact risked future retaliation. Others advocated for even more lenient terms, suggesting that a return to cooperative relations might still be possible. Carter raised her hands for silence. "My decision is made. The Krillians, as the primary architects of this crisis, will face the most severe restrictions. Their military capability will be dismantled, their colonies placed under Earth administration. Other Council species will receive terms proportionate to their involvement in the conspiracy against us." The debate continued for hours, but in the end, the Parliament backed Carter's approach by a narrow margin. Earth would establish a new galactic order, one dominated by humanity rather than the ancient Council species, but would stop short of extinction-level retaliation. 2 years passed. Earth's sudden revelation as a military superpower and the swift defeat of Council forces had rewritten the balance of power throughout known space. Cross Station, formerly Council Station Omega, now served as the headquarters for the Human Protectorate, the administrative body that had replaced the Galactic Council. President Carter stood at the same viewing portal where Ambassador Cross had first arrived at the station years earlier. The triple suns of the Nexus system still cast their light across the crystalline dome, but now human defense platforms orbited nearby, their presence a constant reminder of the new order. "Madam President," Admiral Hayes approached, datapad in hand. "The Krillian Rehabilitation Zone reports another uprising attempt. Minimal casualties. Situation contained." Carter nodded. "Increase educational resources in that sector. The younger Krillians are beginning to accept the new reality, but the older generation remains resistant." "Yes, Madam President." Hayes hesitated, then continued. "There's another matter. Long-range scouts report unusual energy signatures beyond the Perseus arm. Patterns suggest possible Council refugee activity." Carter turned from the viewport, her expression thoughtful. The Neurons? Possibly. They were the only species to vote against Ambassador Cross's conviction. Intelligence suggests they may have helped evacuate civilians from several Council worlds before our forces arrived. Leave them be, Carter decided. The Neurons understood justice when the rest of the Council abandoned it. If they've established a sanctuary for refugees, we'll respect it as long as no military threat develops. Hayes nodded and departed, leaving Carter alone with her thoughts. The President moved to the center of the observation deck, where a memorial had been erected. A life-sized hologram of Ambassador Elena Cross stood upon a marble pedestal, her expression serene, her diplomatic uniform immaculate. The inscription below read simply, "Peace was our choice." Carter studied the hologram, wondering what Cross would think of the new galactic order. Earth now dominated the known systems. The former Council species existed under various forms of human protection or control. The Krillians, especially, had been humbled, their once proud civilization now struggling under strict oversight. Was this justice? Or had humanity, in its righteous anger over Cross's execution, merely replaced one form of domination with another? As Carter pondered these questions, a young aide approached hesitantly. "Madam President, the Laraxi delegation has arrived for the trade negotiation." Carter nodded. "Thank you. I'll join them shortly." After the aide departed, Carter turned once more to the hologram of Ambassador Cross. "We avenged you," she said softly, "but I wonder if we've honored you. Peace was your choice. Is what we've built truly peace, or merely the absence of resistance?" The hologram, of course, offered no answer. But as Carter turned to leave, her eye caught a report on her datapad, a decoded transmission intercepted near the Perseus arm. The message was fragmentary, but one phrase stood out clearly. "Remember the wisdom of Cross. Peace remains a choice." Carter paused, considering the implications. Perhaps somewhere beyond human-controlled space, Council refugees were building something new, not a military force to challenge Earth's dominance, but a community founded on the principles Ambassador Cross had died defending. For the first time in 2 years, Carter felt a glimmer of hope that true peace, not the peace of conquerors and conquered, but of mutual respect and cooperation, might someday return to the galaxy. It would not be in her lifetime, perhaps not even within the next century, but someday, humanity and the former Council species might find a middle path between the failed idealism of the old order and the harsh dominance of the new. As she walked toward the meeting with the Laraxi delegation, Carter made a silent promise to the memory of Elena Cross. The Exterminatus Protocol had served its purpose, establishing human security in a hostile galaxy. Now it was time to build something better. "Peace was our choice," she whispered. "And perhaps, someday, it will be again."